Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. As always, we will start with the DXY. You guys know, if you've been watching my forecast the past couple weeks, we did target this liquidity here. We pierced right into our weekly and our monthly area of demand, and now we are rallying out. Something very important happened on the lower time frames, which we will get to in a minute. But for now, just a reminder, we have weekly and monthly demand and control. Now, as far as an overall move, I even think it's possible we start to fall again, hit this better weekly demand, and then rally out. That is just an option that I'm seeing that we could see take place. But on the lower time frames, like I said, something significant has taken place. And that would be over here on the 4-hour chart. What significant thing has taken place? Well, not only did we remove pretty much a picture perfect 4-hour downward trend line there. We remove that trend line, and usually when we remove a trend line, we don't really get a 4-hour trend to the we don't get an opposing trend formed. But in this instance, we have a very clean and good looking 4-hour upward trend with clear profit margin, at least up to the 102.53 area. So what I will say is, as long as this 4-hour trend line is holding on the DXY, I think looking for longs is going to be the highest odds thing to do as far as trading the dollar goes. Now, I will be pointing out some counter trend setups today, so I will point out both sides usually, but I'm just saying, based on this 4-hour trend, based on the fact that monthly demand and weekly demand became in control down here, not only did it come in control, we have a very nice trend to the upside now. So in my opinion, it looks to me like the dollar is going to continue to rise. And even on the 1-hour chart, we had two opposing supply zones removed. We had a demand zone that was respected beautifully, and it created another demand zone at 99.99. What a number. Wayne Gretzky. I don't know if there's any hockey fans in here. Let me know. I'm a huge hockey fan. So anyways, there's a 1-hour demand down below. I think it's possible we do maybe see some weakness on the open and pull back down to this 1-hour demand and rally out just like we saw here. So as far as the dollar goes, guys, to recap, the higher time frame macro demand is in control, which is the monthly demand zone. We've been pointing it out for many months now. That demand's in control, which isn't bullish on its own, right? But now the fact that we not only removed the 4-hour downward trend line, but we also created a 4-hour upward trend, in my opinion, that is telling me that all signs are pointing to the upside here as far as the US dollar goes. All right, on to the forecast for the euro US dollar. So looking at the weekly chart here, weekly supply was in control. We've been putting this one out for a while. It wasn't really an area I was looking to trade at. It was just more of a supply that we were watching to see if we reacted off of it. And I mean, we did very well, right? So it's nice to see a reaction off that supply. On the daily chart, though, the daily trend is still holding. We still have this daily trend line being respected. I will admit, obviously, the trend line is being respected more if it's up here than rather right here, but it technically is still being respected. So I want to see price really close below this trend line to really indicate to me, hey, we might be pulling back down to this daily area of demand and filling in the gap between the trend line and the demand zone. So I am kind of remaining bullish here as far as the daily chart goes, but like I said, on the DXY, it is looking strong. So I actually think we are going to break the daily trend at the upside. It's a little bit tricky right now. So I'm going to point out what we could be doing here. Well, first of all, on the 4-hour chart, we've been pointing out this 4-hour demand for quite a while now. Liquidity trap, very nice setup here. I did catch a 1-to-1 trade off this zone here for one of my accounts that I'm doing kind of a little bit of a test on. So that profit was filled today, and we have a nice 4-hour downward trend line. So if you are bearish, I don't mind looking for shorts as long as this 4-hour downward trend line is holding on a 15-minute chart. I think that is fine. With the 4-hour demand zone in control, if you are bullish, you could be looking for longs on a 15-minute chart. You could also be viewing it like that. Where do I think this is going? Personally, like I said, I am expecting price maybe to rally a little bit further and then break the zone and pull back down to this 4-hour zone where we can then maybe get a quick 1-to-1, 2-to-1 trade off of that zone. So that's what I'd be waiting for here on the euro. It is a little bit tricky, but like I said, the weekly supply is in control. The monthly demand's in control in the dollar, which could definitely indicate the daily trend might break here on the euro. So you could be day trading short the 4-hour downward trend. We had a beautiful 1-hour supply zone trade here. Almost filled on that trade. That sucks. I still think it's a decent area of supply at 112.95. A nice rally base drop. The move away is great. We removed a lot of these lows. We removed demand, and we've been catching short trades even over here. This beautiful 1-hour supply zone short trade right there. This trade was called out in last week's weekly Forex forecast. So make sure, if you guys are new, go watch that last week's Forex forecast. You can see I pointed out this exact zone and this exact trading setup, and even one of the members, B Wizard, caught a trade on this zone as well. So beautiful setup from them. And if you guys are enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I do these forecasts every single week. Maybe you can even catch a trade like this next week. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss a forecast. And like I said, 1 hour supplies, technically still fresh, so I still don't mind a potential trade off of that 1 hour area of supply here on the Euro US dollar. Alrighty, on to the forecast for gold, XAUUSD. You can see we had a beautiful pullback down to this daily area demand. Beautiful move off this area of demand. This was a demand zone that we called out in one of the previous weekly Forex forecast videos. So there's your reason to subscribe right there. Beautiful move off that daily demand zone. I even think we could retrace and break this demand zone, especially if we test it again. And the reason being is because on the weekly chart, we have a beautiful rally area of demand at 30.93. From my experience, when we have a very good weekly demand zone down below, and we've been kind of waiting for a nice pullback, usually we will see it. So that's just kind of my gut feeling. We've already kind of got the trade off the daily demand, but with the daily demand in control, we definitely could continue to trade, and it's all going to revolve around this 1 hour chart here on gold. So let me just break that down for you guys. If you guys want to look for confirmation trades in any of these zones, that's what we look for throughout the week in the Diamond membership. If you want to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership for exclusive access to our daily market breakdown videos and catch trades like these. Plus, dive deep with our full-length forecast covering 26 plus markets, our interactive Sunday Zoom sessions, and personal homework to sharpen your strategy. And you'll also join our private Discord group for direct access to me and unlock a complete library of A to Z video lessons to master supply and demand trading. Don't miss out. Let's level up your trading. Links in the description down below. So as far as this 1 hour chart goes, it's pretty simple. If you go back here, we have this 1 hour area demand. This 1 hour demand zone was created because we had a 1 hour downward trend line. That 1 hour downward trend line was removed by this 1 hour area of demand. You can see we almost wicked down into it. So typically my experience has been when we see a clear pullback like this with a wick like that, typically it indicates that there's demand somewhere down below, and in this instance there is. So I like this daily demand zone, and what this daily demand is, I like this 1 hour demand zone, and what this 1 hour demand zone essentially is this is a 1 hour demand zone confirmation coming off of that daily area of demand. Now we have pulled up quite a bit, so it's not as high odds in my opinion, but at the end of the day, this is our pullback entry long to continue to trade with the trend to the upside on the weekly and the daily chart. And honestly, if we break this demand zone, then I think we're going to be headed much lower down to that weekly demand that we were just talking about. So this is our first option for longs. And I will say, if you are bearish gold, for whatever reason, you want to trade counter trend, that's fine. The only way I would be shorting is if we get a pullback up to that supply at 33.81. It's a little bit of a liquidity trap here as well. What I would love to see is a reaction off this liquidity trap again, then get a pullback to the supply. It would just make this trade a little bit higher odds, but it's a little bit of a drop-based drop, hidden supply zone. I like it. It is decent for shorts if you are bearish. Remember, like I said, it is counter trend, so we have to definitely keep that in mind. I'm not saying we're going to get a move like this, and I'm not saying you're going to get a 10-to-1 move off this. You're more likely to get a 10-to-1 move, off of the 1 hour demand zone because we're trading with the trend. So if you are going to trade counter trend at this supply, it's got to be a quick one, 2-to-1, 3-to-1 max. That is just my personal experience. So again, that is our supply zone for short. This is our demand zone for long. Or if we remove this supply and this downward trend line, and we have a new demand zone here, we definitely could look for longs off of the demand zone that does that as well, if that does take place here on gold. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the USDJPY. We are currently reacting off this liquidity support area, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not surprised, right? I really like to see, 3 pullbacks to a liquidity area. I just think we are going to continue to go down. It obviously depends on the DXY. Maybe we aren't targeting this liquidity, right? On the DXY, we had very, very similar price action, and we actually targeted it. Maybe the correlation here isn't as strong, and we won't be. It's all going to depend on the DXY as well and on the daily time frame. To me, it looks like this trend line could be coming to an end. I have no evidence for that just yet because we haven't really been testing it. But just based on the fact that the DXY monthly demand's in control, we could expect price to kind of explode here. But for now, we need to monitor the daily downward trend line to see if it breaks or if it's going to hold. We even have a daily supply zone above that's pretty decent. We could see some hesitation at before we even break out and get a nice breakout to the upside. So this daily supply later could result in some nice lower time frame trades. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. Now, on the 1 hour chart, there is a 1 hour demand zone all the way down here. Unfortunately, it's so far back. I really would have loved to pull back here, but it's a little bit far away for now at 142.64. Not my favorite situation. We could maybe look for a move off of that zone there. That's really all I'm seeing. Unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot. Based on how I do things definitely different than most. I don't really have a lot of zones here. So based on my chain analysis that I do, which is what we teach in these Sunday Zoom sessions. On the 4 hour chart, however, we did get a nice move to the upside here, which gave us a nice 4 hour trend to the upside. So what I will say is as long as this 4 hour trend line's holding, I think looking for longs on a 15-minute chart is definitely going to be quite good. We do have a nice 4 hour area of supply at 149.27, which kind of represents our midterm profit margin as well. So that's where I personally, think we are going. And really that 4 hour supply is just a 4 hour supply embedded inside the daily supply. So at the end of the day, it's it's weird because we have a daily downward trend, but we have a 4 hour upward trend. Honestly, you could be playing both sides right now, and my gut feeling is telling me this 4 hour trend is going to continue to hold. So I will be monitoring the 4 hour trend and continuing to trade long with that 4 hour upward trend on the day trading timeframes. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the GBPUSD. We pierced above this weekly high here. Look at these three candles. It's just funny, like the Three Musketeers or something, but they just look so similar. It's just, I thought it was interesting. Even here, just very, very kind of clean price action as far as those candle formations go. We do have a weekly trend to the upside. Even on the daily time frame, we do have a daily trend to the upside as well. And if you compare this to the euro, it's a little bit different, right? The euro, we are testing the trend line. It looks like we could break it, but as far as the pound goes, we still have quite a ways to kind of test that upward trend line. So how do we go about and trade the pound right now? Well, price action up here was really not great. We clearly had a lot of sideways price action here, but we broke below that sideways price action, and in my opinion, we have a very, very clear peak and valley downward trend line here and downward trend. So what I will say is as long as this 4 hour downward trend line is holding, I think looking for shorts on a 15-minute time frame is completely reasonable. Also, similar to the euro US dollar, we actually just broke this 1 hour trend as we are pulling back into that 1 hour area of supply. Unfortunately, there's no demand down here, so I am not going to draw any demand zone. If you look, we just missed the supply. I'm really zooming in, but we just missed that supply. So it is kind of similar to the euro. If you're going to trade short this pound chart and you also want to trade short the euro supply zone that I was talking about, you kind of got to pick one or split up the risk because you're basically going long the dollar on both of these pairs if you are shorting that. So we need to pick one. I do think the euro is much better than the pound based on the fact that we didn't hang out up here as much in the euro, but this is still a good supply zone on the pound. Since we barely missed it, it makes me a little bit nervous about seeing a winning trade from the supply based on that, but that's fine. You could also be looking for confirmation on the day trading timeframes on a 5-minute chart. I think that would be completely fine in my opinion here on the GBPUSD. On to the forecast for the USDCAD on the weekly time frame here. Massive red candle here, followed up by some basing. Now it looks like we are taking off to the upside. Don't be fooled though. This could just be some sort of, false bottom before we end up pulling back down to that weekly area of demand. And remember, on the daily chart, we still have a very nice daily downward trend line. We're going to have to monitor it, obviously. It definitely could break, and even if it does, we have a very nice daily supply above at 142. So it's definitely a good supply zone up here. In the meantime, we certainly want to be monitoring that daily downward trend line. And on the 4 hour chart, we have a couple good zones. There's even a nice little drop-based drop supply that's kind of in the middle of this entire move down. I like it. I think it could be good for a nice little 2-to-1, maybe a 1-to-1, 3-to-1, whatever you like. It is with the daily trend, so technically you could look for even a 5-to-1 off that trade. So I would definitely have that little hidden drop-based drop on your charts. And if you are bullish, you want to trade counter trend, you think the dollar is going to continue to go strong, that's fine. We do have two areas of demand down below in the 4 hour chart. The first one is at 1.38, and there's one lower at 1.3802. Everyone always asks me, oh, which one do I take, Kevin? Look, there's many options here. You could take both. Let's say this one loses and this one's a winner. Okay, let's say you look for 3-1. Perfect, this one's a winner. Now you're up 2% after that loss. Let's say you lose both. Now you're down 2%, but maybe you win the next trade and now you're up 1% because you're looking for 3-1s. You could just take this one. You could just take this one. There are so many other options you could do. What you could also do is have something like this where you could just kind of take the entire trade, something like that. But then obviously your risk reward becomes worse the bigger your stop is. So keep that in mind. Two good zones here. What you could also be doing, waiting for these zones to be hit if you're a day trader, looking for confirmation trades on a 15-minute chart inside of these zones as well to confirm your entry. That is what I would be doing here on the USDCAD. There is a near-term zone here as well. I'm going to point out on the 1-hour chart. It did remove a very significant area of supply over here. Is a very good supply zone that broke pretty much with no problem. And that is with this 1-hour demand zone at 1.388. It is not my favorite zone. I want to make that very clear. It might only be good for like a 1-to-1. So it's a decent zone. I would have it on my charts. If you're a day trader, it could be good for day trading there as well. It is the nearest zone. And if this one fails, like I said, we have the couple 4-hour zones down below there to be trading as well. And that is the USDCAD. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the Aussie US dollar. On the daily chart here, we broke above this daily upper trend line. There's just a whole lot of nothing going on, especially on these higher time frames. There's not really a good supply zone until all the way up here. Even this supply is, I'm actually thinking about getting rid of it on my charts. Barely a supply zone. It's not looking great. The price action is really bad in my opinion. Even on the weekly chart, where are we going? I don't know. On the 4-hour time frame, we did have an upper trend line on the 4-hour or upper trend. In my opinion, I'm removing that upper trend. At this point, it's just going so sideways. Now, a lot of you might be asking, why don't you just take it off the the watch list for the week, Kevin? Well, because here's why. Something you guys need to learn is there's going to be pairs in your watch list that are like this, where you open a chart and you're just like, ugh, this is terrible. I don't know where to be trading, right? Okay, if price pulls back down to this demand, okay, I think, just as part of a forecast, I think it's a good demand zone. Maybe we can see a move off of. But until then, there's just nothing really to even look at. Even on the 1-hour chart, we had a 1-hour downward trend and it was looking good. But just for example, we caught this beautiful 1-hour zone trade from a couple weeks ago or whenever this was, the daily market breakdown video for the members. So just saying, there has been setups here. There was many setups here, couple losers, great winner, 5-1. So it does work out, but then there's times where there's nothing. And right now, there's not a lot going on. We had a 1-hour downward trend, which means we could have been trading short that 1-hour trend. The trend broke. Now we don't trade, right? There's no trend line. There's no trend. We're just simply not trading. So what we need to wait for here on the 1-hour chart right now, we either need to wait for a trend line like this to be formed. Then we could be looking for longs on a 5-minute chart. Or if we break this low, then we'll have a continued 1-hour downward trend, and we can continue to look for shorts on a 5-minute chart. That is just my 2 cents. And if you want more of my 5 years of supply and demand trading knowledge, the PDF that comes with the membership is absolutely incredible. 38 pages full of information. It's great for beginner traders and even for intermediate traders that want to learn more about supply and demand. So check it out. It comes with the Diamond membership. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the USD Swiss franc. We did target this liquidity here on the weekly chart. Now it looks like we're retracing back up. It is definitely possible we do see a retracement. We do have a 4-hour supply above, and there is a daily supply above. So it is possible we pull back all the way up to like the 0.847 area up here, a little drop-based drop supply. You might notice this is a black box instead of a red. It's because this isn't a zone as far as my chain analysis goes. But if you look how good and strong this move away is, right? It's obviously a great move away. So there, in my opinion, there obviously is selling up here. That is where we could get a retracement back up to, but something interesting is forming on the 4-hour time frame here with a very clear area of resistance. And a lot of you guys might want to be trading like a fourth pullback up to that resistance because maybe you think this is supply. That is not supply. The real supply is sitting right above a little base drop area of supply. Barely a basing candle, but in my opinion, that is the supply zone. I absolutely love that we are basing up here again. And honestly, I think this is a great zone to get a 2-to-1 trade off of at 0.839. I think it's great. It's a liquidity trap setup. I've personally been waiting for it since like here. I've really been waiting for it like since back here, but even now that we're getting a liquidity trap right before it, I absolutely love it. I will take a loss at this trade every single time until I blow my account. It won't happen. It won't blow my account because I've seen the power of the setup. It works great. And if it fails, that's fine. We have the daily supply that's kind of sitting right above it. So that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous. The fact that we have a higher time frame supply just sitting above it. So that's why I'm thinking maybe it's only going to be good for like a 2-to-1. If this was inside the daily supply, I think we could get a 5-to-1, 6-to-1, 7-to-1 trade off the zone. But for now, I think it's a good little 2-to-1 setup. I personally would just be waiting patiently for that demand zone or for that supply zone to be hit. In the meantime, this 1 hour trend line is technically still holding here. I know it's kind of controversial, but this is just how my rules, in my opinion, it's holding. So as long as this trend line's holding, I think looking for longs on a 5-minute chart could be good to target that liquidity and pull back up to that 4 hour supply. So right now I'd be monitoring the 4 hour supply zone, the liquidity trap, and the 1 hour upward trend line on the USD Swiss franc. Alrighty, on to the forecast for crude oil. Last but certainly not least, we have overall weekly and daily downward trend lines. We did catch a long trade though, we'll point out here in a minute. I still like this daily supply for potential pullback shorts at 69.04. I even think that is where we are most likely headed, and that is where we will most likely hesitate and even continue the massive drop down at that weekly supply. I think I said daily, so that's my bad. It is a weekly area of supply. How do we trade gold now? Well, we got a beautiful trade off this 4 hour zone. I've been pointing out this 4 hour zone since back in April, the mid-April, and so far, beautiful move off the zone. It took 2 tests, but we are finally getting a trade off of that zone. There's a clear area of liquidity up here, so what I would love to see is something like this, reaction off the liquidity, pull back up to 66.26 and get a short trade off of that liquidity trap supply zone. And there's even a supply zone up above as well. So a lot of supply zones to get in short up above, which I'm much looking forward to. This demand zone trade was, and it is, counter trend. So if you are long from this zone, it might be best to put your stop loss or break even. That's just my 2 cents. So at this point, you could be looking for longs. This upward trend line on the 1 hour chart's looking very nice. Even a pullback down to this liquidity trap buy area is good in my opinion at 57.56. I want to see that happen soon, right? I don't want to wait for price to do that, then pull back. It's already getting close right now, right? I want to see a pullback, maybe react off the liquidity trap, get a move off that zone. I like it for a potential pullback long trade. In the meantime, we have an upward trend line on the 1 hour chart, which means 5-minute time frame longs are looking really good as well. So it is longs all the way right now on the day trading time frames, and you really could be targeting the liquidity up above. So the longs are counter trend, guys, but in order for a trend to change, we need a 1 hour trend. So right now we have that 1 hour trend, which means you could be day trading long up until that 4 hour supply zone, where we then can switch to potential shorts here on the crude oil chart. If you want to watch the full length forecast and get my daily chart analysis and daily market breakdown videos, join the Diamond membership. Links in the description down below.